Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody had a wonderful Easter weekend. And you'll have to excuse me because the wind was so bad here over the weekend and it's just like stirred up my allergies. So I may cough or I don't know. My eyes are watering, my voice is all crackly, but on with the podcast, right? I wanted to let you all know that I'm officially a candidate for the Arizona State Representative position here in LD9. Got all my signatures turned in end of last week and took some supplementals in yesterday. Some additional signatures came in from my precinct. And so very, very happy that that part of this all is over with. Marching forward, we have to keep beating the drum and letting people know about how terrible this country is, and our state especially, with the open borders and the crime rates that are rising. And there's so much going on behind the scenes in this country that it's kind of hard to keep up with things. And I wanted to talk about these bridges, the bridge that was hit by the cargo ship, first of all. And I was just hearing on the news before I started the podcast that the ship's owners are now trying to minimize the responsibility that they're going to have for paying for the rebuilding of that bridge. And it's something that they can legally do. And they may only be on the hook for about 10% of the cost of it is basically what they're going to try and end up making happen. And of course, we already had our illegitimate president, is what I call him. We already had him state that, in the United States, the federal government's going to pay for this all. And you know what? And they finished off an investigation of that magnitude in 7 hours. They were done with it. There's so many questions as to what's going on and what happened that day. The fact that the black box stopped recording 2 minutes, for 2 minutes. And I think it was right before that accident happened. There's just too many unanswered questions to say that this big investigation is already done. So I guess they're clearing out some of the shipping areas so that they're able to get ships in and out of that docking area into those ports and try and not have this affect the supply chain as much as we thought it was going to. But because I think there's been over a dozen ships stuck in that port, in those ports, because they haven't been able to get out past the bridge. So excuse me. But then we saw, I don't know if any of you saw the video over the weekend of it was a ship or a bridge in Arkansas. Some people were fishing and a boater takes a photo of a barge which struck a bridge on the Arkansas River on Saturday, March 30th. Oh, that's the wrong article. Hold on a second. Oh. The Arkansas Bridge, the Oklahoma State Patrol said that they had closed a highway southbound just to be sure. And the Arkansas River, all right, I guess the highway in Oklahoma was heading towards that bridge. So now, 5 hours ago, there's a report that part of I-95 in Philadelphia is closed after a truck hits a bridge, and the Atlantic City rail service is suspended. So you have to start wondering what is going on. Why are bridges all of a sudden the attention grabbing thing. And you have to stop and think about it. With all of these terrorists that we have in the country after coming over our open borders, which it's confirmed there's terrorists in our country, folks. Why wouldn't they go after bridges and ports and things that would completely disrupt the chain of supply here in the United States? It makes sense, doesn't it? Yet, you've got this lousy federal government being run under this lousy administration, finishing up an investigation in 6 to 7 hours and saying it was an accident, blah, blah, blah. That's all there is to it. The other thing that you have to be aware of, I don't know how many of you are, my sister made me aware of all of this, and then my other sister sent a deal, but on April 8th, when the solar eclipse is going on, supposedly the Canadian government is closing down Niagara Falls because of something that could happen. This administration has authorized NASA to shoot 3 rockets into the solar eclipse, up into the air, up into the atmosphere, to do what? I don't know. The CERN, the atom colliders over there in Europe, they're bolstering things up, and they're going to be doing that and hoping to have 2 atoms collide and find the God matter, the black hole, the wormhole, that sort of thing. There's all this crazy stuff going on the day of the eclipse, April 8th. And so there's even places that are closing down the schools, telling students to stay home, warning residents to stock up on supplies, get food and water. And what is this? Is it fear porn? Is it another way to make us scared and reliable on this crazy federally run media system? Is it meant for us to rely on them so much that we just become puppets in what they have going on? I don't know. It's crazy. And then I was watching a video where there's some people who are saying that there is connections to biblical type predictions, biblical things, not predictions, but biblical events, and that this is the time and the path of the eclipse from 2023 and the one on the 8th are going to cross, and there's an X, and it's a place in Texas. And it's just crazy what you can get on the internet and make your mind go absolutely insane trying to figure this all out. But that type of speculation and what's going to happen, here it comes, oh no, stock up on food, stay home, don't go anywhere. Are we going to find a wormhole? Are, all these crazies and evil people or things from other worlds going to come in through the wormhole and come into the United States and destroy us all? I mean, that's how crazy this one thing was. And I don't even know what to think about that. But the one thing that is happening, and you should be paying attention to, and you should be educating yourself on, is the bridges that are being hit. Not only by cargo ships now, but now a truck in Philadelphia hit a bridge. So you need to be paying attention to this sort of thing. And when things like that happen, that's when I start paying attention to what supplies do I have at home? How ready am I? Because those are the exact things that are going to affect the chain of supply, how things are going to get to us, to our stores, to fill the shelves in our grocery stores. And it's also going to start affecting the prices of things. So, because if they have to end up going to different ports and then transport things by truck, it's going to obviously affect the price of things. So, those are the types of things I like to pay attention to, because those are tangent things. Those are things that I know are actually happening, and we have to be careful. I honestly believe that this summer is going to be a huge summer of unrest in the United States. I think that we're going to see a summer worse than the BLM riots and the all that stuff going up in Oregon and Washington with the I can't remember the name of that group, But it's going to be the illegals causing the unrest this summer. You know, it's going to be very hot and very uncomfortable in a lot of locations in the United States where these people are living out on the streets. They've already had to deal with harsh winter weather and still are in some areas of the United States. But it's going to come to a head this summer. And when you've got that gang member from Venezuela, people like that who are on TikTok and who are becoming social media influencers and encouraging people to squat and go in and squat in homes and take over homes that are not being inhabited, and telling them how they're can live off of the system and how they don't have to work and have more children. The government, the federal government here in the United States will just keep giving you more and more money. Those are the types of people that are going to cause the unrest. They're going to start firing these people up that we deserve more from this government in the United States. They need to give us more. And they're going to be out rioting, I think, probably breaking into businesses, breaking into residents, burning buildings, burning cars, and they're going to be demanding more and more and more from the United States government. Because you've got an idiot for a president who has left these borders open and as you know, as they're interviewing these people recently down at the border, they're all saying, we're coming because Joe Biden invited us. Joe Biden said we could come, that we would be given jobs, that we would have a place to live. And, you know, they get here and they realize there is no place to live. We have a housing shortage here in the United States. And Americans are standing by as this federal government is kicking out veterans and kicking people out of nursing homes and stopping children from having a gymnasium at their school to be able to continue their sports programs and whatnot. We're just standing by and watching the federal government just take this all from us and hand it over to the illegal criminals who have come across our borders. This isn't right. And the more and more and more we allow this federal government to take from us and strip from us, the more they're going to take advantage of us, the more they're going to keep pushing this agenda. Because there's not much resistance, folks. We have to start calling our elected officials on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Set 10 minutes aside every day of the week and call your representatives and tell them, I want this to stop. And even if you're a Republican, call your Democratic representatives if that's the case in your situation. Call them. Be the squeaky wheel. We've got to stop this invasion. And God forbid if Joe Biden gets in again, if they steal the election in November, it's going to be probably 20 to 30 million illegals that will be in our country in the next few years, for sure. And I was watching a pretty disturbing video over the weekend where it's a safe space in a college. I don't know what college it was. It didn't say in the video. But this Black woman gets up and starts talking very loudly and very forcefully, telling people this space, this safe space is for people of color to come and get away from all y'all white folks. And so there's too many white folks in here right now, and you're making us feel uncomfortable. And we're just letting you know you're going to need to leave. We need this safe space to get away from you. How is this not racism happening in our colleges and in our universities across the United States? This is what I'm talking about, things that are happening right under our noses, and we're not doing anything about it. And when nothing is being done and there's no pushback, they will take another step forward and another step forward and another step forward. And before we know it, it's reverse racial discrimination against whites across this country, and we've done nothing to stop it. Even though the Bill of Rights and everything that's in there when it comes to the civil rights era, it pertains to every race and every creed and every skin color. It's not just for people of color. And this is a frightening thing that's happening in the United States. But this is being pushed by the liberal media because they're putting, and the indoctrination happening at the universities and things, that these professors and these teachers are telling these kids, you need to be afraid of white people, even though those professors and teachers are white themselves. We've got to stop this push into making these young people think that there really is racial tension and racial divide in the United States. They're creating it themselves, mind you, but we've got to stop this in its tracks. We're going to need to be more united than ever. More united than ever when these illegals and these terrorists that are in our country start pushing their agendas forward, folks. And it's going to come down to, are you an American or not? I don't care what color your skin is. Come and fight with me. Stand up for our country. This is a scary reality of what we're becoming. We're a bunch of wimps. And we don't have a whole lot of politicians. You know, I listen to Newsmax in the morning, and they replay several times the speech that President Reagan gave about, they talked about, people say, where are the heroes in the country? And he said, they're just not looking hard enough. Go to Arlington Cemetery. You'll see row and row and row upon of the heroes of our country, the people who stood up and fought for our freedom of speech and our freedom of religion and the freedoms that we're allowed in this country. Those are the heroes, folks. Those are the types of politicians that we need to remind the American people that we will stand up to terrorism, as President Reagan said in this speech. We won't let that happen in our country. We will fight to our dying breath for the freedom of speech and the right, our constitutional rights that we have here in the United States. But it's becoming more and more dismal because of the mindset of so many of these people coming out of the colleges and universities that they think we're all after them. There's also another interesting segment that was on the news this morning, and they were talking about assisted suicide. And of course, you know, they're allowing that in some cases up in Canada. And I think the Netherlands was the first country, but I think it's Ireland that is wanting to have assisted suicide available. And I didn't realize this, but the woman who was talking is in the medical field, and she was saying that like 30 to 50% of the trans community attempts or talks about suicide, or there is a percentage of them who have committed suicide already. But she said, but what's unknown is it's about that same percentage of those trans people who have autism. And autism is something that isn't treated properly a lot of the time, isn't recognized. And then there's people with depression. This one woman in Ireland who wants to have the ability to kill herself. She has autism. She has she's depressed, and she has, I can't remember the other thing that she has. But this woman who was on the news was saying those are the types of things that represent the other thing, something personality, that actually tells you that there is something that happened in this woman's childhood that is not being addressed, that is not being treated properly. And so they put these kids on antidepressants. A lot of these trans kids are put on antidepressants because of what they're dealing with. And guess what antidepressants do to you? How many of you seen the commercials that it could have you, thoughts of suicide, to contact your physician or whatnot? It makes these kids suicidal. And how many of our young kids, whether they're trans or not, how many of our young kids are on antidepressants, folks? We're not treating the problems of what's affecting our youth. We're idly standing by and just letting our youth being allowed to be taken over by these whack jobs who are teaching in our colleges and universities. And even those who aren't, who are these trans movement people who are, influencers on the internet and constantly putting these thoughts in our young people's minds who may be struggling with their gender, am I gay? But, they have people like these evil transgender pushers who make them convinced that, you're transgender, you're non-binary, you're this, you're fairy dust, who knows what they are. But we've got to start paying attention. We've got to start stepping up in our communities and figuring out how we can help the youth of our country, because they're going to be the people who are going to be taking over when we leave this world, folks. They're the people that we're trying to set this country right for, so that they don't have to deal with all the crap that we've had to deal with. Anyway, that was my little soapbox for today. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is Chris Kobach, who is the Attorney General in Kansas. He's actually filed a lawsuit challenging Biden's student loan repayment, and 11 states that's led by Kansas. A group of Republican-led states is suing the Biden administration to block a new student loan repayment plan that provides a faster path to cancellation and lower monthly payments for millions of borrowers. Listen, folks, this president doesn't have the authority to do this. The courts already ruled him down on this. And so this lawsuit argues that Biden has overstepped his authority in creating the SAVE plan, which was made available to borrowers last year and has already canceled loans for more than 150,000 college students. It argues that the new plan is no different from Biden's first attempt at student loan cancellation, which the Supreme Court rejected last year. Last time defendants tried this, the Supreme Court said that this action was illegal. Nothing since has changed, according to the lawsuit. The Education Department declined to comment on the lawsuit, but noted that Congress in 1993 gave the department the authority to define the terms of income-driven repayment plans. And the Biden and Harris administration won't stop fighting to provide support and relief to borrowers across the country, no matter how many times Republican elected officials try to stop us. Now, I would be, this SAVE repayment plan is alongside a separate plan to cancel up to $20,000 in debt for more than 40 million Americans. And the Supreme Court blocked the cancellation plan after Republican states sued, but the court didn't examine SAVE, which was still being hashed out. So this administration is just, they don't have the purse strings, folks. They don't have the authority as the president and the vice president and the executive office. They don't have the authority to say how taxpayer money is going to be spent. They have violated this over and over and over during their administration. Congress is the purse strings of this country. Congress is the one who delegates and decides how taxpayer money will be spent and on which programs. And that obviously needs to be reined back in too. But we've got to pay attention to this sort of thing. They don't have the authority to do this. You and I are on the hook for repaying these student loans. This is going to become a taxpayer burden, along with all the money they're sending to Ukraine, along with all of the money that they're wasting along the border, along with all the money that they're handing out to illegals, along with all the money that the list can just keep going on and on and on. The Biden administration thinks that money grows on trees and they can just tell the Treasury, print more money. They don't understand that the country is in a very perilous place right now, folks. And I actually think their agenda is to bankrupt us. I think that's what the whole agenda of this big world order is to bankrupt the United States so that we become financially dependent on a lot of other countries to bail us out. And therefore, they will have the say of what happens here in our country. It's not hard to figure that sort of thing out. So I'm glad. I wanted to see, I was going through this article because I was trying to see what other states have joined Kansas to see if it named them. But let me see. Yeah, so the Biden administration says that more than 7.7 million borrowers have enrolled in the plan, including more than 5 million who have had their monthly payments reduced to $100 or less because they have lower yearly incomes. Be interesting to know how many DACA students were involved in this canceling of the debt. And those are young kids that were brought over by their parents illegally, that the Democrats have been trying to protect for a very long time. But it would be interesting to see how many foreign students who are living here on visas or in the DACA program have applied for this and are having their college debts canceled, because that's just wrong on a whole different level, I think, personally. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today, my sister sent me right before I got on the air, that the homes that BlackRock has been purchasing, which BlackRock is an investment firm, and they have been purchasing single family homes for many, many years here in the United States. And when I was selling one of my homes a few years ago, man, immediately, an investor came in. This was at the height of when prices were going crazy a few years ago. Immediately, an investor came in, offered over the list price. And, I don't know. I knew then, having been a realtor for over, 35 years, I knew what was going on in the market and how these investors come in and then they take over the rental market when they have all these single family homes bought. So I kind of put them off, and I waited until I got a really nice guy. He was going through a divorce. He had 3 kids, and he wanted to stay in the same neighborhood where his ex-wife lived so that their kids could go to the same school. And you know what? I gave up some money, but those are the people that I wanted to buy that house. I didn't want an investor to come in and buy it and turn it into a rental property in the neighborhood. And I just wish more people would think like that. Think of what they're doing to their communities when they are selling a home, because a few $1,000s lost, when you think about what you've done for your community, and your neighbors who used to be your neighbors, that means a lot more than those $2,000 as you go into the future. But so the homes that BlackRock has been purchasing, a huge amount in New York, are being set up to house illegal immigrants. I'm going to share this screen with you so you can see what I'm reading from. Each home will average bringing in $15,000 per month to house illegals. $15,000 per month. These single family residents that BlackRock Investments bought will bring in $15,000 a month, because New York just declared that they're going to pay homeowners there $125 a day to house a migrant. $100 a day per migrant per bedroom. And at $37,300 per migrant, that means that the property would now be bringing in $15,000 a month. Y'all want to come with me down another rabbit hole of how the U.S. government is using private industry to F over the American people? This is going to be a quick video, but I want to put it out because I want to hear what people think. And he says that the basic gist is that the United States government is using BlackRock to permanently house all the illegal immigrants that they've been letting in. So you know how companies like BlackRock have been buying up large amounts of the single family real estate, and a shitload of the properties that they bought are in the state of New York. And New York just declared that they're going to pay homeowners there $125 a day to house migrants, Think about all those houses that BlackRock bought. Let's say that they got a 4-bedroom. That means they can house 4 migrants. That's $15,000 a month. And if any of those migrants have a family, that's additional money on top. And BlackRock doesn't have to worry because the money's guaranteed by the government in New York. I mean, you have to think so far into Biden's presidency, anywhere from 12 to 15 million illegals have crossed over. And then because of all the incentive programs that New York created, you enter this country illegal, you'd have to be stupid not to go to New York. This dude's right. I mean, that's where all of these illegals tell these independent journalists down at the border where they're going. 80% of it is New York. You're going to get paid, you're going to get fed, you're going to get housed, all for the price of either a bus trip up there, or maybe you catch one of those flights that Biden's been sending under everyone's radar. But regardless, you're going to go to New York, where BlackRock owns thousands of homes. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of those homes are about to have an illegal immigrant as a tenant, and they're going to make sure that they get at least one in every bedroom. And I would expect that this continues at least until the census. And I think he's right. I think
private industry to fuck over the American people. This is going to be a quick video, but I wanted to put it out because I want to hear what people think. The basic gist is that the United States government is using BlackRock to permanently house all the illegal immigrants they've been letting in. So you know how companies like BlackRock have been buying up large amounts of the single-family real estate? And a shitload of the properties that they bought are in the state of New York. And New York just declared that they're going to pay homeowners there $125 a day to house a migrant. $125 a day per migrant, per bedroom. That means the taxpayers of New York are going to be paying $3,750 per migrant per month. Now think about all those houses that BlackRock bought. Let's say they got a 4-bedroom. That means they can house 4 migrants. And at $3,750 per migrant, that means that property would now be bringing in $15,000 a month. And if any of those migrants have a family, that's additional money on top. And BlackRock doesn't have to worry because the money's guaranteed by the government of New York. I mean, you have to think, so far in Biden's presidency, anywhere from 12 to 15 million illegals have crossed over. And then because of all the incentive programs that New York created, you enter this country illegally, you'd have to be stupid not to go to New York. You're going to get paid. You're going to get fed. You're going to get housed, all for the price of either a bus trip up there, or maybe you can catch one of those flights that Biden's been sending under everyone's radar. But regardless, you're going to go to New York, where BlackRock owns thousands of homes. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of those homes are about to have an illegal immigrant as a tenant. And they're going to make sure they get at least one in every bedroom. And I would expect that this continues at least until the census.
You know, that is not far-fetched at all. I truly believe that is what is going on. These investment companies, you know, they knew. This is the thing. It's like the members of Congress who have made so much money off of, investing in the stock market because they have a heads up. They're given a heads up. It's like BlackRock knew this was going to be happening. They knew that there was going to be a housing shortage. They knew that there was going to need to be a place to put all these illegals. They knew that the government was going to step up, the Biden administration anyway, was going to step up and provide them with money to probably house these illegals. Maybe they already knew. Maybe this was a plan. Maybe it was given to them. Invest in a bunch of homes. We're going to need the homes that you invest in to house the people that we're bringing in, the new voters, the new people to create more democratic representation in Congress when the census comes around again. It's just crazy. It's like chasing, 15 toddlers around, trying to figure out what is going on a daily basis in this country. All these bridges are being hit, by trucks, by boats, the illegal, the amount of people coming over, the crimes, the Venezuelan crime that's happening, what's happening in New York City, how are we going to house these people, student loan forgiveness, the prices of things, how are we going to put food on our table? My gosh. How are any of us able to sleep at night? If you're thinking about any of these things like I do, it's pretty hard. And we've got to start stepping up and supporting the politicians who are going to make a difference, folks. Oh, it's so disgusting to think of some of the people that we have in elected positions and how they're voting and what they're doing, and how they're destroying our country, being a part of destroying this country. Oh, okay. I went over those two things. I am going to get some guests on here too. I know you're probably all sick of hearing me talk, but, when I think about, here it is. When I think about, the amount of crime that's being committed in this country, it's really hard for me when I'm reading all of these articles not to constantly just be on this podcast and talking about the illegal crime that's happening. drugs and guns found in a Bronx home where child lives with the migrant's parents. Group of migrant squatters busted on gun and drug charges in New York. New York PD, Rolex watch robberies in the West Village. Of course, this is happening with. They're looking for a group of robbers targeting individuals wearing Rolex watches. Surveillance footage shows 4 friends walking down 6th Avenue at around 9:30 p.m. Wednesday night, followed by a moped with 2 men going the opposite direction before the robbery takes place. I saw the gun in his hand, this little silver gun, who was a victim of the stick-up Eric. He pulled it out and just said, Rolex, Rolex, give me a Rolex. And he handed it over. What am I going to do? Argue with the guy holding a gun in my side? So I guess this is happening there in New York too, and they are illegals, according to the police. These gangs of experienced robbers and these gangs that break into homes. I mean, and a lot of them are coming from Chile, from Ecuador, and from Venezuela. But Chile and Ecuador have had a lot of the Venezuelan gang members show up there. And I'm sure they've probably recruited a bunch of them to do this sort of thing, because they've been in there causing all kinds of mayhem in both of those countries. So, and who knows? I mean, I'm sure Ecuador and Chile had gangs there too. They may have just signed on to be with, signed on to team up with these Venezuelan ones. I'm going through some of these articles that so this is kind of like what I was talking about, how these people are only coming because of being invited by the Biden administration.
They must have heard something that made them decide to make a big journey.
Pero algo escucharon
What was it?
para
What did they
hacerlos
hear about the
decidirse
border?
venirse.
Estaba entrando mucha gente y el gobierno le estaba
We heard
dando,
that a lot of people
dando
were going in
ingreso a personas
and
que
the
de verdad
government
vengan
was
a
giving them
buscar
permission
cosas
to get
buenas.
Ah, there we
La
go.
verdad,
So-
tenemos muchos amigos,
in. And we have a
conocidos,
lot of
que
friends
ya han pasado
and people
y
we know
pues
that
pasan
they get across
paso y se entregan a
and
inmigración
they
de los
turn
Estados
into
Unidos y pues nos hacen un
Border
proceso,
Patrol, and then
nos
they go through
ayudan.
the process,
nos
and then they
dan,
help them to
nos
keep
dan
their ways,
refugio del otro lado,
We
nos
get
consiguen
shelters.
trabajo, que eso es lo que queremos,
and we get jobs.
trabajar
That's
para
what
ayudar a
we
nuestra
want.
familia.
But what they must
So basically what they're saying is, we've heard from our friends that once you get here, you get processed by Border Patrol, and then you get shelter and you get a job. And don't forget, the behind the scenes things that are happening, like with Tyson Chicken laying off everybody in that particularly small town and promising to hire all illegals. And this isn't because they're more skilled and qualified people. It isn't because, these people in this town that Tyson Foods is currently in don't need the jobs. It's because they're going to take advantage of the cheap labor. This is why so many of the Chamber of Commerces in so many of the city and towns around this country support illegal immigration and support the open borders policy that Biden has, because they do pay these people less. And companies like Tyson Chicken and some of these slaughterhouses across the Midwest, they take advantage of these illegals, and they even have their children, young children coming in at night and cleaning up the blood and the guts and stuff. So it's child labor on top of the cheap labor that these Chamber of Commerces assure their community, their business owner communities, that we're going to make sure that we support this financially, to support the candidates that are going to keep our borders open so that you're able to have cheap labor in the United States. And folks, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat when it comes to that sort of thing. If you're a business owner and you're participating in this cheap labor scheme that the Chamber of Commerces are supporting, you're part of the problem. Let me see. Texas DPS. So, you know, this new Texas law and things that are happening in Texas. This is just logical stuff, folks. This is just logic, and it makes no sense why this wouldn't be happening clear across the border. So, destroying state property is a crime in Texas, and those responsible will be arrested and charged. And on the 29th of March, DPS arrested 4 illegal immigrants caught cutting C-wire and attempting to breach the fence near Gate 36 in El Paso. All 4 have now been charged. So they show them cutting the wire, that's state property. And so when they do this sort of thing, they will be arrested now. So they were arrested for cutting the wire. They're going to be charged, criminally charged. And Texas is handling business the way that it should be, right? These folks don't have the right to just come up to the border fence that they've painstakingly put up to keep them out and cut it and then come across the border. There needs to be consequences. And until these people know and can spread the word that there's going to be consequences and you're going to be put in jail and we're going to be deported. And oh, guess what? Now we have a new president, Trump, and they're putting up border wall and we're not going to be able to come back over if they deport us. And, you know, when there's consequences for crimes that are committed, it makes a difference because the word spreads throughout the criminal community. Let me see what this one is. Just more of them being arrested coming over the border. So let me pull this up so you guys can see this. So I don't know if any of you heard. So all of those illegals who were arrested for storming the border and pushing through the National Guard in Texas, a judge released them on Easter Sunday, just released them out of prison, out of jail where they were being held. So this is an update on them.
And customs enforcement authorities took these individuals into their custody, which was a caveat to the judge's order. The judge said that they could be released on their own recognizance. And if ICE wanted to get them, they could, which was a pretty surprising move. But they weren't really allowing the state to pursue, keeping them in custody. That wasn't going to happen with this judge's ruling. So they let ICE take them in. We still don't know about the others because this is just a portion of that 200 that you mentioned.
All right. So we've got the ICE.
So good to know that this judge recognized that ICE does have the authority to arrest these people. But, you know, there's many, many more of them who were involved in that breach of our border and pushing past National Guard that need to be apprehended and need to have consequences. But even though Texas has declared this an invasion, I'm finding it pretty interesting that these judges and these elected officials and other law enforcement, they don't want to recognize the fact that the state of Texas now has authority to protect its borders and protect its citizens. It states that in the Constitution. If there's an invasion and if the federal government is not handling things, then the states have the right to protect themselves. And so with all of those steps taken and the governor of Texas having declared it an invasion in their state, I find it pretty surprising that the judge just releases these people for breaching the border and pushing through our National Guard and saying that the state doesn't have the right to hold them. But, you know, thank goodness ICE was on the spot and was able to take over from there. Now, ICE may have them, but you've got Mayorkas, who's over the Department of Homeland Security. So the next thing that's probably going to happen is the Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, is going to say, release these people. Because a lot of the time during the Biden administration, the people that ICE have brought in to be deported aren't really being deported, folks. Mayorkas is putting a stop to all of that kind of enforcement, quite frankly. You've got, I think, well, it was over 200,000, I know for sure, over 200,000 cases of imminent deportation of criminals that judges had already ordered in court. These people need to be deported. And the Department of Homeland Security failed to file the proper paperwork in time for these over 200,000 people to be deported. And guess what, folks? The cases were dropped because the Department of Homeland Security dropped the ball on over 200,000 illegal criminals in our country. So what is Mayorkas doing? He needs to be dragged in front of Congress, and they need to question him. Why did this happen under your watch? Of course, his typical answer will be, I'll get back to you on that. I don't have the figures with me. The border is secure. I'll have to get back to you on that. The border is secure. It'll just be the same old answers from that goon. So I was thankful and hopeful when Andy Biggs put out, who is a state representative, U.S. congressman from Arizona, put out a statement that they were going to be delivering the articles of impeachment for Mayorkas on April 10th to the Senate. So we all have to keep our eyes peeled and our ears open to see what happens with this, because, you know, Chuck Schumer has a responsibility of getting this out on the floor and letting the full body vote. He can't just stuff it on a shelf and act like it hasn't happened. And especially with so many of these Democratic representatives and senators understanding the dire situation down at the border and how it's becoming so dangerous for the United States, I think that there may be some movement there in the Senate, and maybe we'll get some Democrats to vote along with Republicans to go forward with the impeachment hearings. It needs to happen. I can't believe that we've got sitting members in Congress and Senate who have direct access to any security issues and can come and have these people come talk to them and tell them, you know, we've got security concerns with the terrorists that Biden has let over our borders. We've got these people here, these people there, a group of these terrorists, you know, congregating in this state. If they listen and if they pay attention and if they are proactive to get those kind of updates and really listen to what these people are saying, how can they vote no on impeaching Mayorkas and getting him out of there, or at least having him answer questions? And I would find it pretty amusing if in an impeachment hearing, if that dude shows up and constantly says, I don't have those figures with me, I'll have to get back to you. The dude would have to come prepared, right? He would have to have some sort of answers for these people. And I hope that it's very hard pressed and hardcore going after him. Be interesting to see how many times he says the border is secure during an impeachment hearing. But the amount of crime, folks, that's happening, and I'm telling you, I get hundreds and hundreds of articles a week of the crime that these illegals are committing in our country. A Guatemalan illegal immigrant with criminal history charged with child sex crimes in Massachusetts. The Biden administration is now allowing immigrants to check third gender option on naturalization forms. Haitian illegal immigrant confesses to sexually abusing a 10-year-old girl in Florida. 10 years old, folks. Shoot me then. Miami men jailed after Grindr threesome goes wrong. So these two guys who are illegals call this guy off a Grindr to come meet him at a hotel room, and then stick a gun in his side and tell him they want the money back that they gave him as a deposit. Reports hundreds of thousands of migrants fly into Miami to score Joe Biden's parole benefits. Michigan sheriff, well-trained Chilean ninjas robbing wealthy Americans. DeSantis notches win lawsuit migrant flights. Yeah, that was kind of confusing. Nearly 1,000 gotaways migrants illegally fled past the southern border on Easter Sunday. And that was just at one location. And gotaways, so nearly 1,000 gotaway fled past the southern border. Gotaways are migrants that are not officially processed by CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. So, so those aren't recorded on the official border numbers each month. And this is another thing. See, this is why Biden has them flying them in on these planes and having them apply on these phone apps and then giving them flights directly into the country, because he doesn't have to include those numbers in border crossings. Okay. And we just had, what city was it? Dang it. I was watching it on the news. We just had the mayor, I think it was Washington, D.C. We had Mayor Bowser on there this morning saying that the crime in D.C. has gone down tremendously. Well, folks, here's the thing, and I posted this yesterday on my social media. James Woodard said it. If you're not processing and going after criminals, then of course crime statistics are going to be down. Of course they are. And it's just like what I was saying about illegal crime rates, how they try and muddy those figures. And I've been looking at mugshots of I can't even tell you, countless illegals who've been arrested just recently. And the articles say that they're illegals. And I have ways of getting their mugshots, and it claims that their race is white. And they're clearly from Senegal, if they're Africans, or they're Guatemalans or South Americans. They're not white, folks. But yet their crimes are being put into the category of crimes committed by white people in the United States. And this is how crime statistics are constantly skewed. So that's another thing that worries me, because Americans truly aren't informed of the amount of crime that these illegals are committing here. We have no clue. I mean, I have a backdoor kind of a view of everything, because I've got all these obscure publications and articles from them that the public will never see, because it'll never be brought up on mainstream media. And like I said, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles a week of crimes that these illegals are committing. And I would say that a good 50% or more are sexual crimes against children, folks, by these illegals that are coming into our country. Anyway, I'm going to work on getting some interesting guests on, hopefully tomorrow, but for sure I'm going to have a guest on Thursday. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I hope you have a good evening, and we will see you back here tomorrow.